also like to extend a big thank you to Select Sires for presenting on this webinar and for their support of WODPET. So quickly, for any of you who aren't familiar with our organization, WODPET stands for the Western Organic Dairy Producers Alliance. Our mission is to preserve, protect, and ensure the sustainability and integrity of organic dairy farming across the West. We do hope our work will be beneficial to all organic dairies, regardless of location, size, or scope, and we strive to be an independent voice working for our producers. So as we've worked through the COVID pandemic, we've obviously gained these new virtual platforms to share information, and WODPET hopes to continue to use these tools to keep in touch and share information as the year progresses. I know I'm not alone in saying that we'd all love to be meeting in person. That can't come soon enough, but I think farmers are known for working with what they have and making the best of situations. Let's move on to today's topic, automated cow monitoring systems, the what's, whys, and hows. I'd like to introduce our presenter, Ernesto Santillanez with Select Sires. He's the Technical Training Manager for Select Sires. As the research and technical consultant, he oversees the technical support for CowManager in North America. Ernesto has a vast dairy background, having managed large dairy operations in the past and also previously working in technical support for API. He's worked with many automated cow monitoring systems, giving him a great perspective on what's available out there in the industry. And I've heard from a few of you that are currently using CowManager and have had great things to say about the system. On a personal note, we are utilizing CowManager on our dairy here in Eastern Washington as well. Ernesto has been a great resource for us, and we really look forward to working with him more in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ernesto.
Yes, so today we are focusing on the cow monitoring systems, the what, who's, whys, and hows. I added an extra one there because I think that's important to know what's out there and some of these major questions. Like Jill said, my name is Ernesto Santillanez, Technical Training Manager for Select Sires. I've had the pleasure of managing two larger dairies in New Mexico and in Ohio, and then moving on to a sales and technical training career with Affy Milk and now with the Select Sires. This presentation is not meant to dive into the deep weeds of cow monitoring, but it will tell you what's out there, what's available. Even though I work for Select Sires and we heavily promote CowManager as a cow monitoring platform, there are other ones out there, and so you just need to be aware of what's out there. So going forward, I'll move on. So quickly, we'll jump onto the what. When we ask what cow monitoring is, if you would have asked me, I've been in this industry roughly 22, 23 years now. If you would have asked me what it was, this is what I would have pictured. I would have pictured a man near a fence looking over his cows, and this is probably still the case oftentimes. I think this is a great way to spend time. Looking at cows and being around cows is very enjoyable. I think this is a great way to spend time. And I think this is still cow monitoring today, even on some of our farms. Not knocking it. If you were to ask the urban definition of cow monitoring, and I took a poll earlier this week just to get an idea of what non-farm people thought about cow monitoring. So I happened to have my brother on the phone, and there was some background noise, and I had him ask them because they didn't know what I did for a living. And their comment was, cow monitoring, watching cows poop and pee, which I kind of chuckled. And we got this from 2 or 3 people, so it wasn't unique, and that's why it made the slide. If you were to ask Google what the definition of cow monitoring is, this is probably more in lines of what this presentation is going to be about today. It's going to be the electronic monitoring of dairy cattle. And the funny part is if you type in Google, I still ended up with poop as part of the search results. So it kind of made me laugh that the Google algorithm kind of coincided to what the urban definition was. On this page, there are other things on here that are what we're going to talk about. So you got a nice screen, a computer screen right here with numbers, a cell phone. You have CowManager's logo with health, nutrition, and fertility. There's a pH-D meter that measures ketones in blood. There's animals eating, drinking water, being cows. There's this thing here that's showing things move into an antenna, and so this is what cow monitoring currently that we're talking about. We're talking about the electronic monitoring of cattle behavior. Before we continue on what it is today, a little history. I want to thank Dr. Ray Niebel for this slide. He let me borrow it. And this is something that I didn't know. I have not been in the industry since 1923, but roughly 100 years ago, there was a study that was published that said that mammals display predictable increase in physical activity when in estrus. And I think that's pretty common knowledge now, and the study just confirmed it. In 1954, the first potential useful pedometry in dairy cows was developed. And then in 1997, they tuned it even more. So it took roughly 70-something years to get from this big apparatus they tied on the cow that they had to remove to a system that they can reliably predict when the animal was the optimal time of breeding a cow, which I found interesting. So the progression from cow monitoring early days, and I left out the farmer standing because that's still currently happening, and I think that's fantastic. But the electronic or equipment-based monitoring we have here in 1923, progressing probably mid-70s to early 90s. There was a lot of pedometers and collars. Both of these systems required animals to actually walk through a lane with a reader that picked up the information that tag had collected. At least this one right here had a little marble that went back and forth, and that's how it did the step counts. And then when the animal walked through a reader, it would upload the information and download it to a computer. As we progress, we have new pedometers now that are live, that are transmitting to antennas and picking up live information. And the same thing has happened to collared systems. And now we're doing rumination, eating on the neck, activity on the leg. Moving forward to the CowManager system, which is neither of those systems, we've kind of progressed. We went from a system that was tied to a leg that you had to remove, now all the way up to the ear. And the ear is a very, very, very good place for a cow monitoring sensor. It picks up very slight movements of chewing, eating, drinking, walking, and so it ends up being a really, really ideal place for a cow monitoring sensor. So we'll dive into a short slide of the who's, and we talked a little bit about some of the pedometer systems. And so some of these pedometer systems started off with pedometers and now have adopted collars because that's where the technology has gone. You have the pedometer systems are able to do lying time calving alerts. You have other systems that are now getting into some new fandangled augmented reality where they're thinking farmers are going to walk around with these glasses that as they look at a cow, the information comes up. There are systems tied to our robotic herds that are picking up all types of information off of neck collars. There are other companies that do have location or ear tag technology, and so the space has become a very crowded space now. Everybody's trying to monitor every type of behavior that's out there with the cows. So there's a lot of systems out there, but they're all very, very similar in reasons why people go to these systems. Again, I want to thank Dr. Ray Niebel for this slide. This is a fantastic slide. historical opportunities in dairy reproduction. And this one's going to be, I know this is an organic herd, but I know there's a lot of non-organic people out there, and Dr. Ray Nebel did this slide, and I think it's accurate. In the 80s, you had to find the problem cows. You were out there with your vet, and you're saying, hey, doctor, this cow is not breeding back, and so you were focusing on the problem cow. And then the use of prostaglandins on these problem cows started occurring. And then they went to prostaglandin on all cows. And so the progression started, and then we started to synchronize for estrus and timed AI. Moving forward, we got into the, at least on conventional farms, timed AI, off syncs, double off syncs, and so it's kind of progressed. Early pregnancy, so ultrasounding down to 28, 30 days, trying to figure out how fast could we resynchronize these failed inseminations and trying to get them back into getting the animal back into a pregnant state. And then here, as of recent, 2017 forward, we started looking at sorted semen, only wanting heifers. And we can all argue or talk about how this is good or bad, and it's but this is the adoption of technology and kind of how it's gone. And here, as a very recent, the adoption of accuracy in activity systems and wellness, because we've gotten to a point, at least on a lot of farms, where reproduction is no longer the #1 problem. I mean, it is a problem, and we're still trying to get through it, but it's not always the #1 problem. So we went from fixed problem cows to getting cows pregnant and focusing on getting them healthy, to getting cows pregnant fast, to, I think this is where we're at today in the industry. We have to get the right cows pregnant, because we're noticing, or the industry is going to where you're only breeding a certain portion of your animals back to, excuse me, back to Holstein or Jersey breed, and certain portions of our herds are getting bred back to beef. And so we're trying to figure out getting the right cows pregnant. And so we went from a problem-oriented solution to an opportunity-based solution. So I think that's this is a pretty accurate slide as depicted as what's happened. Excuse me. And continuing on the why cow monitoring, this is probably more in my lifetime, since around 1998, 99. Labor is a big thing, and some things that come with labor, and this culture, and not just culture with people that speak a different language or a different culture. You have young people that you used to depend on to milk cows. That group of people has shrunk and no longer available. That culture is ending. Communication with the culture, whether it be young people or people of a different ethnic group or language, is different. And so we have labor with culture, communication, and language as stumbling blocks for producers. Tight margins. I didn't put in an amount for hundredweight because it keeps on changing, and depending on if you're conventional or organic, that number could change, but the margins are tight on either side of this. And so dairymen are having to learn how to do more with less. That's been a common theme. Herd size increases, at least in the near term. It's inevitable. It seems like it doesn't matter if it's conventional or organic. Farms are getting bigger. And so with the labor and communication, herd size, margins, and then we'll add a social aspect to this, complex lives. You add family that are active. I know that my family are more active than ever. I have one kid going to one thing, another kid going to something else. And our lives have become very, very, very busy. And that doesn't change for the farmer as well. And I think sometimes if you save farmers more time, they find ways to use it up very, very quickly. Lastly, technology with advances in cell phone and wireless and internet and computers and apps all working together now. I think cow monitoring has really, really developed into a system that farmers can now depend on and utilize 24/7. And this goes for no matter what system you're looking at. Cow monitoring should make the farm more profitable. I think some people get this idea of buying a new toy when it comes to cow monitoring, and that's fantastic. We like to see some eagerness and some happy people purchasing, but cow monitoring should make the farm more profitable. You should be either making healthier cows to make higher production. You should be improving your preg rates, increase conception. You should be reducing your labor costs in some form or fashion. When you have data coming in to you that's accurate and you're able to make good decisions on, you don't need as many people to go out and look at every single cow. Hopefully decrease medical expenses, and by finding cows that need attention earlier, or making the right decision earlier, either to keep or cull the animal. And again, milking the right cow should be part of the cow monitoring solution. And then a little bit on improved quality of life. And farmers are notorious for just working themselves to death, but peace of mind that a system is watching their cows 24/7. Should make them more efficient and add more time for other activities. And like I said, farmers will probably find more work to put in their days with more time. But family is still important, and hopefully that's the case. Now we'll dive into the how, and most of the systems do work very similarly. From here forward, I will touch more on the cow manager side of cow monitoring than some of the other ones, but know that there is some overlap. So cow monitoring 24/7 begins with a sensor. These sensors have batteries in them, and they are able to communicate wirelessly to some type of antenna or router or coordinator. And so the system goes like this. The tag on the animal, the sensor on the animal will communicate to an antenna. The antenna will communicate to the computer that's at the office or in the home. That computer will go to the internet, to the cloud, connect to a server of some sort. That data gets processed, reorganized, and the alerts and everything that goes back comes back to the internet and then down to the mobile device. That's normal way of the flow of data on these newer cow monitoring systems. So reliable internet is required for the most part if you want the mobile device. The sensors should, and I'll speak for CowManager, but the sensors should have some sort of memory storage. CowManagers have 7 days worth of storage on their tag. So if the animal leaves the area of the antenna, when she comes back in, it'll upload all the information that was saved during her absence from being read around the antenna. On the CowManager system, the updates for the software for the PC and the apps are all included. So the system is continually being updated in the cloud. So every few weeks you're getting a new update of some sort that's fine-tuning the system. So what does it measure? And this is where there is a little bit of overlap with some of the other systems that are out there, but I'll speak to how CowManager works. So CowManager divides the behaviors into 5 different behaviors and then 1 temperature. So it picks up rumination, eating, inactivity, high activity, and activity. Rumination is the chewing of cud. That's what it's doing. It's looking there and it's looking at the way that ear tag is moving on its ear while an animal is chewing its cud. And an animal, for the most part, 32 to 53% of its time, it's chewing its cud. Eating is considered chewing, like the action of chewing, which is different than ruminating. And licking or swallowing feed, 10 to 22% of the time. Inactivity. That means the animal is either standing or lying down doing nothing. That's what inactive is considered in the CowManager software. High activity, that means the animal is moving around more than usual. Active is none of the above all of the categories, walking, drinking, and etc. So CowManager has figured out these algorithms of each one of these behaviors. And then the final one, which isn't a behavior, but it is a part of the sensor, CowManager is able to determine the ear surface temperature of the ear, which I will go into on the health module side on the CowManager, which is important. It helps in the detection of health issues on cows. CowManager system is like easy to install. So you got an activator that turns on the ear tag. They come to the producer off, so they need to be swiped to turn it on. This is one of the benefits of the CowManager system, is that the ease of installation. Farmers are very, very, very comfortable attaching tags. Probably more than anything else on the farm, attaching ear tags is something that happens from the day the animal is born. So this is a very easy process. It can be attached, the CowManager tag can be attached with a simple blank button, but also can be utilized with a RFID button if that's what the farm is using. And then the animal is linked through the software. You can do it on the desktop, but because we have the option of doing it on the app, this becomes the easiest way. Each tag comes with its own code, so you scan the tag in the app and assign, or we call it link and delink, depending on if you're removing a tag or attaching a tag to the cow. It becomes the easiest way of managing the sensor to cow work. It's so simple. It's very simple to do. There's no getting behind her neck. There's no getting near her feet for a pedometer and a strap. So probably one of the easiest systems out there to attach. CowManager specifically comes with 3 different modules: fertility, health, and nutrition. There is a Find My Cow, but it's not considered a module. Larger farms may implement a Find My Cow instrument, so it's a device that helps you find a cow on the farm. As you get closer to a farm, closer to a cow, it will alert you that you're getting closer and closer to that ear tag that identifies that animal. This is the dashboard of CowManager, and so it comes open when you open the software on the alert list. So this is the alert list that happens to be on this demo. These are all your animals that are in heat, and these are all your health, but I'll go into that specifically. I'll jump into fertility. So CowManager has 3 different thresholds for fertility. Potential, that's the blue, this one right here. Suspicious is the light green, and in heat is the dark green. Beautiful thing about this is it comes to your cell phone as well. If you double click on the app on the desktop, you get a nice big screen that shows you what her behavior has been in the last 30 days. On the dashboard itself, it tells you if she's going up in heat or down in heat. For example, this animal in light blue right here, she started her heat 3.5 hours ago, and so she's a potential heat. She did have a pen change, so you have to be careful. So there is some information that comes in saying that she did change pen. And so how the system works, and I'll go into more detail here, is the animal comes in. This is the heat line, the blue line on the bottom. You're seeing her activity come up. This top line is actually, believe it or not, rumination. And so what the algorithm has shown us is that when rumination and activity, the red and the blue, spike, and they start meeting each other, this is a heat. This is how the system deciphers a heat. And so since it opens up in a 60-day window, you're able to actually, if she's had a previous heat, hopefully she doesn't, but if she does, here's a heat and here's her most current heat. You are able to drill down to specifics and go into a 3-day graph that shows you the activity of the animal in the last 3-day form, which becomes almost an hourly way of looking at the cow. And so this has been the activity of this example cow in her heat cycle. She started, she went up, and there it is. And so their insemination time would be on the latter part of this heat curve. So she comes into her heat, she's standing in heat in this area here, And so the optimum time to breed would be on the back side of this graph. Ovulation is going to happen on the far side over here. And so you're able to fine tune when this animal is actually supposed to be bred. And if you're using sex semen, this is a very, very useful graph so that you're fine tuning when to inseminate the animal, because sex semen actually has a smaller window than conventional semen on when it should be deposited. So fantastic information on the fertility side. The alerts do come to your cell phone, so you're not having to go back to a computer and a desktop to pick up the information. It's coming to you live. The farmer is able to choose who receives the information. So if you have a breeding service, you're able to add them as part of the alert team, and you're able to pick out what alerts you want each person to get. We'll move on to the health module. Similar to the fertility module, there are 3 different levels of alerts. There's a suspicious, sick, and very sick, and they each come with their own sets of behaviors that the system is looking for. Suspicious is looking for decreased or moderately impaired rumination, so it's only really looking at rumination drop. Sick is looking for less activity and greatly reduced rumination on an individual animal. And very sick is looking for reduced activity and rumination, so progressively worse. And what we find is oftentimes these sick animals will go through suspicious, sick, and end up at very sick. There's also a temperature component to the alerts. This little thermometer right here is telling us that this animal's temperature has dropped compared to her herd mates. There is a group change alert, so to let you know that this animal did change groups as well. And let me move forward so I can show you the temperature side. So sick, very sick, and suspicious, sick, and very sick. The bottom graph is is the temperature. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at the green line being the herd, and the blue line looking at the individual animal. And if you can, I don't know how it's shown on your end, but the blue line drops completely off compared to her herd mates. And so this is a sign that this animal is in need of attention. There are several ways to look at the information. You can look at it on a daily graph on a bar chart form. And so each one of these bars is a daily component of what the animal did in behavior-wise as far as activity, rumination, and eating. And then you can also look at it on an hourly basis. And this is where you would use to actually pinpoint when this animal was sick. So if you look on the hourly basis, this animal is showing that she got sick here. Her rumination has dropped compared to what she did before. But if you look at it on an hourly basis, her rumination has completely stopped or slowed down. And so this animal needs some attention now before she gets any worse. On the temperature graph, this is a more detailed temperature graph. The red line is the herd. The black line is actually the animal that is sick. And as you can tell, she's below what her herd mates had been doing. So this animal's temperature is lower than her herd mates. The alerts do come to your cell phone as well. No need to go to the office of the farm computer to go find this. The alerts will be live on your phone just like they'd be on the desktop. And probably the most exciting one of the modules that we have out today is the nutrition module. And so CowManager had a nutrition module in the past. It didn't have a lot of alerts, but the new improved nutrition module actually comes with some alerts and actually has some great functionality to it. The alerts are meant for animals in transition, so dry, close up, and fresh. And so the alerts are 50 days prior to calving, and they're comparing individual animals to her herd mates in that group. There's a heat stress component to this. Kind of interesting. I know we're in the middle of winter now, and I happen to be in South Dakota today, but was called on a farm in Michigan that was asking about the system not picking up as many alerts as it had at one time. So I logged on to the farm, found out that this summer was extremely hot for that farm, and it has continued to affect their expressions of heat even 2 months after the heat stress happened. So heat stress is a huge one. Excuse me. Group monitoring, so we're able to monitor feed intake on a group level. Stress alerts, we're looking for increased activity on a group level. Health alerts on a group level, so if we notice a group that has reduced activity as a group and eating and ruminations affected, a health alert will come up for that. And then you're able to compare different groups to different lactations or groups to other groups. It's a neat, I'll show you some specifics. So transition, this is the transition page. And so what you're looking at on this page is you're looking at individual cow. So the black line, this is the cow that we're looking at, okay? This is what a rumination and eating has been for the last 75 days in this example. She's a third lactation animal. We're comparing all the animals that went through this transition between 8/25/2020 and 11/23/2020. So we're looking at every animal that went through this period, and we're comparing this animal against her herd mates. The gray area, or the shaded area, I'm sorry, is one standard deviation from the normal. So 66% of the animals are in this shaded area. And as you can tell, this animal 50 days prior to calving is right here, was on the bottom end. She was bringing up the bottom of eating and rumination. She happened to get back to average 17 days out, and then something happened, and she dropped off below her herd mates, and then struggled back, and then was basically bringing up the bottom end of the curve all the way through. Well, she freshened, and this animal actually ended up with milk fever here, metritis here, and ketosis here. And 27 days later, a third lactation animal, which is an animal you definitely don't want to lose on a farm, ended up dying. And so this is the worst case scenario of a transition for an animal. And this is what we're trying to avoid with this nutrition module. We're trying to catch these animals and make sure that we're catching them on this side and making sure that when they hit here, they have a fighting chance. Some of the high risk factors for transition are high body condition score, cows, animals with twins. If you're moving cows into a close-up late, that will affect transition. Poor diet. If they have a poor diet during the dry and close-up period, you will have transition problems. If you are overcrowded in the bunks in free stalls, you will experience limited water. Vaccination, this is one that I got to see. They were vaccinating animals right as they were moving into close-up, but it was really hitting them hard, and you could see where rumination and eating really was affected 21 days prior to calving. Lameness, although the system won't pick up lameness will cause poor eating and rumination, and long dry periods. So I showed you worst case, and so right now there's a study going on in Michigan where they're doing some preliminary treatment on animals and trying to see and treat animals under the transition period. So calving in all these graphs is right here. So this would be calving on all graphs. This animal dropped off, was treated with a yeast bolus, so no antibiotics were used. Were treated with the yeast bolus, and the animal came back up above. And I think we have more data on this animal, and she actually ended up doing fantastic post-calving. This animal came down probably 5-6 days before calving, treated, and this animal is also at average. And so all these examples, and then we have the animal down here that was treated, but she's continued to stay. So not every animal gets to read the hey, you need to get better book, but Right now, I believe there's 50, 60 cows on this study, and it's going as planned, but we will be able to tell people more about this study once it's completed. In the end, with the nutrition module, we want to tackle the root of the problem. So whatever is happening on the farm that's causing these problems, whether it be vaccination or late moves to close-up or things like that, that's the ultimate goal. The short term is that we're able to actually intervene with some type of yeast bolus and get these animals back going. Some animals do need some anti-inflammatory to help treat fevers. But the most important is to try to reduce the number of animals with an at-risk alert by improving management. And if we can do this, then that whole part of cow monitoring having to pay for itself will happen. On the group alerts, we have a heat stress alert, low feed intake alert, stress alert, and a health alert. And they all take the different algorithms on behavior, whether it be ruminating, activity, eating, and inactivity into account, and will alert you for different stresses. So sick, stress, and this is on a group level. We're no longer looking at individual cow level. We're displaying the alert and showing you that lactating cows have had a low feed intake alert for 5 hours. Well, that could mean that they didn't have enough feed. That could mean that they weren't pushed up correctly. And farmers are busy and employees are busy. And so sometimes this doesn't happen. And so the system is constantly watching and alerting you of what's happening on the farm. This is an example of what we saw on a farm that had cameras. And so we had a slick bunk over here. And for 4 or 5 hours, the animals, the green line, were basically at the bottom. They did not have anything to eat for 4 or 5 hours. So this was not because they weren't pushed up. This is because they didn't have any feed. So what would you do the next day? You would up their feed to make sure that you don't see this the next 24-hour period, and you're able to kind of pinpoint. So this and a feed management system go hand in hand. Since I am talking to our organic producers today and not just conventional, I do have this farm. I took a screenshot yesterday, and they didn't complete it, but I urge people with organic farms to get some training and learn how to do this. So in this example, on 4/19/2020, they let the cows out to pasture. So this, they must have been confined. And so quickly you get to see an increase in rumination, eating increases, drops off a little. And so if you're moving cows from pasture to pasture or from different rations or different pastures, if you start entering this information, it'll give you a better clue of what actually is happening. I looked into this farm, and so this was probably March, April, I believe. And so they got let out to pasture. They started eating and ruminating. Right here, this is June. So what happens in June in most of the United States? It gets hot. And so the animals started slowing down, and they kind of slowed down, and eating and ruminating stayed strong, but eating slowed down. And then I didn't put a heat graph on here, but you're able to actually add heat or temperature, and you would probably see a spike in heat or temperature in the graph. So there's a lot of data that can be utilized here if the farmer is willing to add it. The next component to the nutrition module is comparison of groups. So you're able to compare certain groups, so lactation 1s to lactation 2, 3s, and 4s in different time frames, and see how they're performing. If you're feeding a different ration to lactation 1s compared to lactation 2s, or if they're going to different pastures, you're able to kind of pinpoint which pasture or which group of cows is doing better. That's one way of doing it. There is a transition comparison on how each group is getting through the transition period. So we're in this example up here on the upper right, we're comparing lactation 1s to lactation 2s. So lactation 1s compared to lactation 2s. There isn't a big difference in this example. And then you'll also be able to go back on an individual cow and go back to as far as when you had the system and look at her rumination and eating and see how she did going back as far as as long as you've had the system. and kind of see when her peaks or her valleys were in nutrition. This is the same farm that I was showing you above in the rumination and eating historic graph. And so this is a graph of transition. We're looking at all the animals that transitioned from October 1st to February 24th, so through today or yesterday. And we're looking at lactating cows. And so these are all the animals that went through this transition during this time period. And if you look, we're rumination and eating is pretty constant till about 10 days prior to calving. And then normally cows will drop about a 20 to 30% drop in rumination and eating right before they calve. And then the ultimate goal is to have this come up as fast as possible. And so I didn't talk to this producer, but what I do notice is that these animals actually do get back quite quick. But right here at day 11, there must be something in management that slows these animals down. So at day 11, right here, rumination starts to slow down, and it slows down quite a bit. This is probably a 30 minute to an hour difference from the peak to the drop. So something is happening in the transition that's causing animals to slow down in rumination. Are they giving it? I don't know this farm, but there's a bunch of questions you could probably ask the producer to find out what the issue may be. But this is definitely not what you want to see on your fresh cow. Now, finishing up, cow monitoring 24/7. We went through this slide because I am speaking to a organic and pasture-based system. The system is available, and a lot of these systems should be available in a solar form. So you should be able to put a solar, be able to monitor your cows as they're out in pasture. So that is a possibility, especially with CowManager. For the people that have beef cows out there, we do have a lot of beef herds on the CowManager system. I can tell you I would rather put on a ear tag sensor than a neck collar or a pedometer on a beef cow. And that's helping them monitor rumination, eating, and fertility on these beef cows. Ear tags are easy to install, and we have some universities that are participating in some research with us as well. For the farms that use third-party herd management, whether it be Bovasync, PC Dart, DHI, Dairy Comp, there is two-way communication or communication within those systems. So you're able to work in your PC Dart, and that information does come over to CowManager. That is available. It's not only cow monitoring, you're able to utilize it in sync with some of these other systems. I talked about the cell phones, and it's Android and Apple, no difference. You're able to use either type of platform. There is a return on investment calculator. We won't go into this today. I would urge you to talk to your Select Sires representative, depending on where you're at. You can find out who your Select Sires representative is and sit with them and try to go through this calculator to make sure that it makes financial sense for you. Doing enough of these, there is probably a 1 to 2 year payback on the system if you're able to improve fertility and improve some of the health components to a farm. And in ending, why CowManager specifically? You're able to find cows 1 or 2 days earlier than just your visual observation. You're seeing these behaviors, and the algorithm are such that you're able to see this and get these cows either treated or down the road 1 or 2 days earlier. So you're not waiting for this animal to get very sick before you make a decision on what you're going to do. You're trying to maximize your 21-day preg rate and your conception rates. One of the big ones that probably doesn't get used often, quick installation. I know we have some farms out there where we can't actually go out and install them where they've been mailed, where a 12 to 14-year-old person on the farm has been able to install them, get them up and running, and we've been able to remotely do training for those farms. So this is an extremely easy system to install. The app is very friendly. The installation of the linking and delinking of cows is simple. The system is always monitoring which sensor are going to start to fail in the system. So the battery life in the system is about a 4 or 5 year battery life in the system, and it will start telling you which tag is going to start to fail. There's always updates. There are routine updates in the cloud. Technical support through Select Sires and CowManager is always available. There's a subscription module to where you can pay monthly, quarterly, or yearly. It doesn't have to be all purchased at one time. And the return on investment, like I said, is a 12 to 24-month return on investment. The number one take-home message, and this goes to everybody, not just CowManager or Select Sires, it requires user participation. Oftentimes these systems get sold. It doesn't matter if it's CowManager or somebody else. It requires that the user learn how to use it and be an active participant. It is supposed to be fine-tuned and molded to what your needs are. The systems come pretty open, and when I say open, I mean a little bit noisy. Sometimes you're getting more alerts than you would like, and they need fine-tuned. And that requires the users to help us fine-tune that. And get training. I know oftentimes things get sold to farmers where they get sold, they get installed, and then everybody kind of forgets. Demand that you get some training. I know it shouldn't be your job because you purchased it, but make sure you get training, because that's going to lead to your success and to, frankly, Select Sires and CowManager's success. And don't forget to fine-tune the system to work like you would like it to work. Oftentimes these systems can be fine-tuned to work how you would like them to work, not how CowManager or X brand makes them work. They are able to be fine-tuned. And I think with that, I can say thank you. And Jill, if you want to jump on, and I can field some questions if there are any.
Yeah. I think we've had a few come up in regard to the batteries. Can you actually change the batteries, or is there a new sensor required?
I will tell you, you do not want to be changing batteries on a device that cows have access to. There are companies out there that have batteries that were replaceable, and it becomes a giant headache for the producer and the company. So I know that that's available out there. I don't personally recommend a battery change out. These systems need to be watertight, sealed, and anything that can be opened can get water into them. So no, CowManager does not have a replaceable battery by design.
And how much is a replacement sensor then, or a replacement tag?
You know, I work for Select, so I don't, we're a co-op. I don't have the number in front of me. I know somewhere probably in the $40 range, I would imagine, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, and someone added in the comments that it was $36. So
okay.
Other questions we've had are the tags easy to remove? Taking them on and off?
Well, they're not so easy that they fall off on their own. They're actually meant to click in, but they are meant to be removable. You could actually cut the tag off, and it's just a button that you can replace. And buttons are not very expensive, and so that's probably what I would do. I'd cut the back off and then just insert a new what do you call it? A new back to the tag. So
okay.
If you're going to take them off, I would just cut the backs off and then add new backs, which are pennies.
Okay. And then most of us on here are using grazing systems, you know, and our cows are out on pastures. So I know there's a solar antenna and some different things. How much area does that cover, and how well does that work with our pastures and rotating?
Well, it would depend on how many sensors or how many antennas you would have. Our indoor antennas will go 300 feet radius, so 600 feet diameter. You can look at it that way. If depending on how far you are, know that the tag is collecting data, so when the animal comes back within range, it will upload all the information that was made in the last 12 hours, correct?
Okay. And so if I wanted to have this across my different pastures on my farm, though, how many acres, I guess, would one of those cover and that solar router?
I don't know the answer to that question, Jill. I don't know how I get back to people, but I can certainly get back to you, and then you could post it maybe somewhere.
Okay. Okay. That would be great. I know looking at our system, I wonder how many we'd need out there, and there's other things that come into play, like some of us have trees and some of us, graze kind of a broad range of pastures out there. Another question that came up and there was some back and forth on is measuring the ear temperature. One, how accurate is it in comparison to rectal temps, or what's the relationship there?
It's not meant to be a accurate rectal type temperature. It's meant to just monitor her historic ear temperature. And so even though you're not looking at 101 or 102 degree cow temperature, you're looking at the change, and that's what the system is looking for. It's looking for that change in her regular temperature compared to the herd. So if the herd is all walking around together and their temperature is consistent and the individual cow's temperature actually drops, we're managing by exception. So we're looking at her because she dropped compared to her herd mates, because they're out in the same weather, same conditions as the rest of the herd.
Okay. And another question just came through. Is there a catch gate for this program, and does it work with other systems? And I know I had that.
Oh, you're talking about a sort gate?
Mm-hmm.
CowManager themselves do not have a sort option, but if you tie it together with an RFID tag and a system that does sort cows, it does work with an RFID tag. But CowManager themselves do not have a sorting system.
Okay. My other question is at Preg Check. Can we enter things on the app there at Preg Check and it'll feed back to DairyComp, or do I still have to go enter things manually into DairyComp?
Yes. In those situations where you have another software that's doing the herd management, it would need to be entered in the other herd management and not in the CowManager, because it's the herd management is coming to CowManager. So yes, you would still have to enter it in DairyComp.
Okay, and then that feeds back into CowManager.
Correct. And that could be fed either manually, automatically, or on a manually or automatically. It doesn't have to be a actual you have to do it. It could be scheduled, where that information is going back and forth.
And maybe we can go back to your slide real quick, like talking about the cost of a system like this and what it would actually cost to implement on your farm. I think you had a slide on that at one point. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
I didn't put anything on cost here, because I would encourage people that are listening to reach out to their Select Sires representative to find out the cost. At Select Sires, we deal in a co-op. That's how we work, in a co-op style. So you would have to go out to your co-op members. So out west would be all west.
And so people on here today that are interested in learning more about CowManager for their operations, should they reach out to their Select Sires rep or All West rep, or what route should they go to get more information?
There are people trained in each of the co-ops that are directly trained to be able to do a quote and talk about CowManager.
Okay. And we're getting close to the end of our hour here. I will say Ernesto has been kind enough to stay on and field a few more questions if you all have them. But I'd like to get out there that, we want to extend a huge thank you to Ernesto and Lyle from Select Sires on behalf of WADPA for this webinar today. We definitely appreciate the time and energy that you all put into it, as well as your support of the WADPA organization.